Good evening, everyone. It's been a couple of weeks. I hope you're doing well. We've missed you. We've missed you. We needed a bit of a break last week because both of us had a lot of stuff going on, and sometimes it just happens. But we are back and we are refreshed, and we're excited to have a conversation with you tonight. So, we're gonna wait for people to tune in. So, um, in that time, Ari, tell us how you've been doing.
I've been kind of blah. Like that seasonal, we talked about seasonal depression the last episode. I was starting to feel it a little bit. It's been kind of hitting me. I haven't been, I've been getting the blahs.
I'm not gonna lie, I've been feeling the same way. I've been having a really difficult time motivating myself, especially with regard to school, because literally right now I am under a pile of grading. And we
Oh
have we have
no.
1 week of school left, and I'm doing okay with it, but obviously students right now we're in a very vulnerable position because everything's online and they're having their own anxiety. So I'm not only battling my own, but I'm also trying to help alleviate theirs. So it's like this constant cycle of what's happening? Um, but oh, Igny says I haven't played Animal Crossing at all today. I don't know if that's a good or bad thing. Well, since that's one of your creative outlets, hopefully you do get to play it soon. So far, Arpy's here, Igny's here. I'm sure a few more people will tune in as soon as they realize that we're streaming. So tonight is a very unique episode. So this is our last episode for the year because we are going to go on a little Christmas break for the rest of December, and we'll be coming back on January. Oh, what day was it? We're going to be back on January 11th. No, the 8th. January 8th, we'll be back. Um, and we're going to be coming back and we're going to be talking about our therapy experiences. But we also wanted to take a moment and just reflect on the fact that this is our 23rd episode. Like, it is really cool to think that we are um, 23 episodes into this show,
Yeah.
because it seems like yesterday we had just come up with a concept. It was like in May that we came up with it, and then we started streaming in June. So um, it's weird to think that season one is almost over with.
Yeah. And that it's like half a year and that we have all these episodes under our belts and that we came up with all of these ideas and that we I and that 2020 is over and that we made it.
Well, and I'm not gonna lie, for me on the creative front, this show has been very helpful in making 2020 a better year for me. Because I know it's been a train wreck for a lot of people, but being able to create and collaborate with you in this way has been very beneficial. And I think that we've produced a lot of really good episodes and we've had a lot of really good conversations. And I hope that all of you have enjoyed them so far. And keep in mind, there's a lot more to come too, because we already have several episodes lined up and ready to go for 2021. I think we have episodes all the way into midway through February planned. So, and we're probably going to get together and flesh more of them out too. So,
And that's only if something breaking doesn't take place and push episodes back, and that
right.
has
Yeah,
happened
oh yeah,
already. So
we if there's something significant that happens, we definitely try to move things around so we can have that conversation if it's immediately needed. So there's, again, like you were saying, there's opportunity for even more episodes to occur out of it. So but it's really cool. And as Ari and I have both mentioned before, we're going to keep doing this as long as we keep having ideas and keep having fun doing it. So um all right, so before we get into talking about this week's topic, which is largely us reflecting on 2020, I'm going to, of course, read our show's mission statement per the usual. So many witness different atrocities, large or small, that fray the social fabric around us, and much of the time, many may feel powerless and know not how to address such things. This phrase has gotten worse with the rise of social media, being able to share a trauma and having it go viral in real time and be able to experience like this collective grief and outrage. So that begs the question of what can we do to mend these communities that have seen considerable tragedy, all dealt usually by privileged groups who may not understand their personal involvement. Our goal with the show is to restitch that tapestry together through creating conversation via creativity, action, and education. And of course, tonight we're going to be reflecting on a lot of the different things that have happened throughout 2020 and how we think, well, it's affected, number one, us, how we think it's affected the world around us, and what we think may happen in the future looking back on these various events. Okay. So, so Ari, would you like to get us started with all of this?
So the first episode, going all the way back, we talked about George Floyd, our first episode, and it was, I look back on that episode very fondly because it talked about white privilege. It talked about the protests, which I feel like were very important and needed to take place because something very terrible had happened. It's where the basis for our show's motto comes from, the atrocities that take place. George Floyd was definitely one of those first atrocities that took place in our society, as far as things that we were talking about and were in the forefront of our mind when we first created the show. So you know, we were really thinking about George Floyd when we thought about this. So uh,
Like, it's super interesting that we did start with that. I really
mhm,
felt like when we began our show, we picked a very difficult subject to talk about because, like, at that point, our entire country was very much processing grief and complete outrage at what had happened. So,
yeah,
um, I think, like, unfortunately, there were a lot of people who didn't want to address the topic at all.
right.
And I think it was very important that we did because, like, if it goes undiscussed, then history repeats itself. And keep in mind though, like even though it has been discussed in the past, even before us having that conversation, history still repeated itself too. So like what happens, and I think we touched on it in that episode too, is that an atrocity happens, people get really upset about it for a while, but then that goes away until it happens again.
Mhm.
But when it comes to those who are in power, no progress is made because there's not continual, you know, motivation for them to do anything until something bad happens. And it's horrible to me that something bad should have to happen to get people to take any sort of action regarding those types of things.
And that's really what did happen. Is after our episode, George Floyd kind of fell out of view, and Breonna Taylor case kind of came into view, and it really took over the Black Lives Matter movement and took over the public sphere, and her case kind of really became the linchpin of the movement, and it was for a long time. And I feel like we don't really talk about Black Lives Matter now in the public sphere, like it's kind of like fallen off. And I feel like it's really important to keep talking about Black Lives Matter because it's still important, even though there's not, you know, somebody who's, I feel like black people get murdered by police all the time, and it's just that it's not this like monumental, large, huge case that like has been like filmed by police or filmed by somebody, or like that it's in the public sphere. But I think that it's still really important to still talk about it, and that white privilege is still a problem, and that we're still dealing with all of these issues, but we're not talking about it anymore because it's not sensational to talk about it anymore. And so, going back to those first episodes, we're still having to deal with these things. It's not in the forefront of our minds anymore. It's out of the public sphere. It's not sensational to talk about it anymore.
I really like that you mentioned sensationalism, because the truth is Igni, it's totally okay that you had to go for a few minutes. It's really interesting to look, like, as much as I do not appreciate the attacks aimed at the media by the right, I do think that the media does gain some sort of advantage over covering what is sensational. And the truth is, our president has been sensationalizing things. Like it's like conversations surrounding him are what's entertaining to a lot of people. A lot of people are drawn to the controversy, drawn to what the suspense of it all, let's just say. And if you notice, going back, like, a lot of the conversations surrounding Black Lives Matter stopped around when election stuff started amping up. And since the election, like, most of the narrative has been largely defined by what both sides have been doing, like what their decisions are, what they're trying to do. And unfortunately, I think that's what causes these very important conversations to fall by the wayside more often than not.
Yeah, and it's really unfortunate. And I think that there's still something to be had. There's still something there that we still need to check ourselves, and that we still need to be saying, am I doing the right thing? Am I still, you know, you know, checking myself and making sure that I'm uh checking my privilege, because uh it's still out there. It's still, present.
And it's not going to go away by the snap of a finger. One, like,
Because it's been built up over 400 years of American history.
it's a conditioning, and it is at the root of our being. So to think that it's going to go away overnight, I think is wearing some major rose tinted glasses.
Mhm.
And the thing is, like, I really do think that this whole year, and of course we're going to talk about the pandemic too, but I think this whole year has been a very important lesson for all of us in acknowledging that we aren't in a place in our world that's all sunshine and rainbows. Like, things like have the potential to be wonderful, but in order for that phenomenalness to be reached, there needs to be a lot of very challenging acknowledgement of things, challenging growth, education to take place. Because that, like, how are we going to understand these things until we expose ourselves to that information and to that knowledge of whether or not we are acting on these various mechanisms that are conditioned and in place, if that makes sense. So
Mhm.
um but yeah, like that, like, I really do think that um the social movements that have been happening over the past several months have been very instrumental in creating some change and setting the stage for especially the narratives that were in both parties, especially when it came to the debates, the election stuff as well.
It just breaks my heart when it goes really quiet after, like, everything just all settles down, and then because, well, the court case has gone away, and, like, everybody just settles down and like it's sort of like, well, this is over, so Black lives don't matter anymore. Like we don't have to talk about it anymore. It doesn't make sense to talk about it anymore. Like the narrative is over. We can just go back to our regular lives, and it's just like the tidal wave is over. On to the next thing.
Right. Yeah. It does make me sad too. And unfortunately, I don't think that will ever get fixed until we recognize that, like you were mentioning earlier, it is sensationalism that really determines what happens, and unfortunately, or determines what's discussed. And unfortunately, the powers that be know how to work the media as a system too, unfortunately. Um, because many of them have a lot of investment in media, a lot of investment in how information is disseminated and maintained. And the truth is, like, I really think had it not, would it not be, I cannot speak tonight. It must be my White Claw. Would it not be for social media, I don't think that any form of these types of conversations would still be happening. You know, like I really do think that in some way the internet sustains things a bit when it comes to those important conversations. So I think this year has also taught us that the internet is way more valuable than we believe. And when we get to the pandemic stuff, we'll talk about that a little bit further. But was there anything else on the social front that you wanted to talk about?
No. No, let's
So
keep
the
on moving.
other, yeah, like another really notable thing that we discussed in our series was, I mean, holding toxic YouTubers accountable. Like obviously Ari and I have made the decision to hold this podcast on YouTube. And I think, and we both have done this before, but I think it's very important to have conversations about the platform as it is too. And naturally, during our episode, we had a conversation about Shane Dawson, for example, and other toxic YouTubers who have been very troubling in the past.
And I think it kind of just transformed into a conversation about cancel culture in general, like whether or not cancel culture actually worked.
Right. Well, and the fact that he hasn't done any video since, like, I mean, begs the question of like maybe, or it doesn't beg the question, but begs the idea that maybe it does work, you know, so long as that YouTuber actually sticks to what they decide to do. I don't think Jenna Marbles has either. Granted, I don't think her situation was as horrible as Shane's, but
She made that conscious decision to not make videos, though. I think that Shane Dawson was like booed off the stage.
right. And he was like I feel like Jenna bowed out respectively, but Shane kind of really fought it for a while and was
Yeah,
very like contentious about it, which of course in my opinion didn't make it any like the situation any better. Like I really feel like he should have done what Jenna did. And the truth is, like, I think a lot of people were questioning his genuine um message in his video because he did his right after Jenna did. So I guess that like we see this example taking place, but it also doesn't change the fact that there's still a lot of toxic people on YouTube. One other thing that I thought was super interesting that I saw with regard to toxic YouTubers, and I'm sure many of you remember that, like, I've done like maybe 3 or 4 videos about Logan Paul, who,
Logan Paul.
who in the past has really annoyed annoyed me because he makes like very troubling decisions for the shock of it all, for the sensationalism to get views.
For sure.
Well, a couple of weeks ago, I'm sure many of you saw the news about Harry Styles posing for a photo shoot dressed in women's attire. And
Yeah, I saw that.
and of course there was some sort of other celebrity who spoke out against Harry Styles for doing that, and called it.
Candace Owens, I think.
Yeah, Candace. See, I couldn't even remember who it was because I was just so annoyed by that person. Interestingly, Logan Paul stood up for Harry Styles in a pretty interesting speech that he had in during one of his podcasts. So initially I was just like, oh God, do I even want to listen to this? And I listened to it and I was actually like, has Logan Paul grown? So I do think I do think that people do have the capacity to grow, but there also has to be evidence that that growth is consistent and not just done to appease people in the moment. So I'm skeptical. What do you think? I could tell that you were like, I need to say something about this.
Okay, so here's the thing. Candace Owens is like a sludge master. She's just sludgy. I'm sorry.
I love it. I love that.
She's just very conservative. She just is she's kind of Trumpy. She's just kind of like she's just sort of sludgy to me. She just is gonna say the most conservative, outlandish thing possible. Okay. So she's just gonna be out there far right, whatever. So to be against Candace Owens and the right people saying that he's terrible and bring back manly men and whatever, it's not exactly a controversial opinion.
Right. It shouldn't be a controversial opinion because it should be common sense.
So it's like it's like it's not I to agree with him is it's sort of like it's
it
like
begs,
agreeing it's like everybody's agreeing with it's like agreeing with the class bully that everybody hates the bean teacher.
right. Well, and it begs the question of, and I know conservatives are always making jokes about our generation needing participation trophies, and I feel horrible for using this, but I'm going to. Let's just say I'm trying to subvert the rhetorical stream here, but it almost makes it seem like he thinks that by speaking out in a social situation like this, that warrants him some sort of socially progressive notch in his belt. So he can point or some socially progressive thing to go on his resume to be like, I said this, so I am good, you know.
Okay. Good job. You got a notch. Now say
Woo.
something else. Do something else. Just put your mouth money where your mouth is.
Right. Let's see if that's consistent. That's all I have to say.
Didn't he pretend to be gay for a while?
Oh yeah, that's one of the things that I spoke out against in a couple of my videos because I was so angry about that. And then of course there was that horrible thing that he did in Japan where he basically appropriated Japanese culture in 20 different ways and then filmed a suicide victim's body in the suicide forest in Japan.
Right, that guy.
I
Oh
I
God.
yeah, that was bad. That was really bad. So, to me, I
No,
don't know if there's any
I
redemption
mean,
in that.
I mean, like, he's got to do more than just say that, it's okay for a guy to wear a dress if he wants to wear a dress. There's got to be more growth than that. To
Oh,
me,
I agree completely. Honestly, and I will live by this, I really think that when he did that first thing that he should have been banned from YouTube. But obviously that doesn't happen, especially when there are big YouTubers that make YouTube money. There are a lot of free passes, it seems, for a lot of people. And being with that thought in mind, that brings us to Onision, who is still on YouTube. I'm sure you've heard me we've talked about him before too, but
oh, I don't even want
Oh, I'm
Onision.
not planning on going in depth about him because I don't think he deserves that much attention. But
Man,
again,
so after our episode, because my phone heard the words Onision, I started getting book reviews on Onision as my YouTube recommends.
oh
So
no,
like
I can only imagine what my results are going to be now.
it was
But
horrible. It was horrible. Like I had like it was like 20 recommended like Onision book review. I read his book so you didn't have to. And I was like, okay, we're in for a 2-hour video. Let's do this.
right, I get sucked into those too, unfortunately. It's just like I really think that at the end of the day, when it comes to toxic YouTubers like these people that we've mentioned, like I really think that it just reflects on the fact that it's all about capitalism. Like if something or if someone makes YouTube money, they're willing to let things slide. Whereas if it's smaller YouTubers, they have to tread much more carefully because they don't have the access and support to do the things
Well,
that
I
big.
think smaller YouTubers, I think YouTubers in general just get away with anything. Like, if you're a YouTuber, you're gonna get away with stuff.
Oh, see,
Like,
like I've always seen small YouTubers not like for some reason they are more susceptible, depending on who it is, of course. But like honestly, I'm still salty because there was a long time where a lot of LGBTQ plus YouTubers were targeted for having conversations about LGBTQ plus subjects, and that still happens from time to time.
that's because they get mass reported.
Hmm. And
It
and of
like
course, YouTube
it's only
systems aren't
I feel
perfect.
like I feel like people who are like doing the really bad stuff don't get reported because like first of all, like finding them is difficult and like two is like I
Well,
feel like
everything's automated. Like that's another problem with it all. Like a lot of it's automated, so that automated stuff will go through and not have a literal person on the other hand or on the other end look through it to make the call of like, is this bad or is this mistakenly reported, so on and so forth.
yeah, it's true. And
Yeah.
like they're like looking for like other stuff that like they're like looking for like feeding dogs and I don't even know like terrible stuff that like I can't even imagine the type stuff that they're looking for on YouTube but like just but like I can't even imagine. I can't even imagine. I don't even want to say because it's like but like and I don't know. Maybe they're looking for actual porn. I don't know. I don't know.
Well, if that's the case, they're not always successful with that either, because unfortunately, I know people who have seen such things on YouTube. Let's just say that it's a very dynamic and interesting place. So obviously, like if like that was a pretty huge moment for us, I think, for our show is like having a conversation about those YouTubers. But I know that talking about the pandemic for sure has been a very huge cornerstone of our show. Obviously, because that's been a very significant thing to happen throughout all of 2020 almost. And it's interesting when we did our first episode about the pandemic, which was when was that first episode? Was it July 23rd, I think?
Yeah.
Like it was July 23rd. At that time, there were only 170,000 people who had died from coronavirus. Now we're up to 302,727. And that number probably has been updated since we even found that number. And now the infection rate has skyrocketed to 16,289,893 in the
And I
United
think And
States.
I think the infection rate was, like, at a quarter of that, like,
Oh,
before.
yeah. Well, yeah, in July, like, a lot of states were still in lockdowns
Mhm.
um, and practicing very practical things, and the administration was sort of at least taking it seriously at that point, whereas now they don't seem to have anything to say about the pandemic, unless it's taking credit for the vaccines, which are coming out, but that's besides the point. Um,
It seems like people are, like, so antsy about the vaccine coming out that they're just like, "I don't need to wear a mask anymore because the vaccine's coming."
yeah, it's like this false sense of security, and the truth is, like, I had this conversation the other day with somebody who was very much, like, not taking the coronavirus seriously, and they were making it sound like things have improved, and I asked the question, I was like, "How exactly have things improved since the start of this virus?" And they couldn't respond to that question because the truth is, if you look at the numbers and if you look
It's
at
gotten worse.
gotten way worse, like, we are currently the highest country when it comes to infection rate and death, and it's
Yeah.
because we're not taking it seriously.
My county is one of the worst counties in the state right now. We have 1 in 4 people in my county, infected with coronavirus. We have 3 people that die every day. I and I live in a town of about 30,000 people. We had to reopen a hospital that was, closed because there are so many people that are infected. Um, I was driving DoorDash with my sister, and like you can see the hospital, and it's all lit up with people who are just like have coronavirus. They have suspended all non-essential surgeries, so all of the hospital, it's just emergencies and coronavirus, and that's it.
Wow.
And you just look, and it's just all coronavirus. It's
There
intense.
just seems to be this, I don't know, this disparity between people living in more urban areas having a more intimate understanding of it versus people in rural areas who where they encounter people every day where it's not discussed, but they also aren't seeing it either. Like, I know, like, my family comes from a pretty small county in northern Michigan, and it's not until recently up there that people started taking things seriously because there's been a spike in cases because people weren't taking it seriously. So it's I really think that as Americans, need to take this year as a very important lesson. People aren't taking the virus seriously because many of them believe that these shelter in place regulations are breaching liberty. And I will kind of circulate back and say, well, what good is liberty if you're too sick to enjoy it, too sick to live by it? What is patriotism when the country that you are wanting to be patriotic for is barely functioning because of the state of things, you know? Like, I think both are important, but when it comes to being able to live itself, like, to me, on a human level, that should take priority. But that's me. I'm sure you probably can relate with that too.
Yeah, it's pretty intense.
Well, I really think that it has drawn a lot of very uncomfortable attention for people to the toxic qualities of being American in a way, you know, unfortunately.
I just, I I don't know, like, what's gonna happen when the virus or the vaccine comes out. Like, are people going to actually take it? Like, Are we gonna get the anti-vaxxers who are like, I don't need to take it? Like,
It's funny that you mentioned that because I literally had a conversation the other day with somebody who literally, I did not think they were an anti-vaxxer, but they were like, I'm not going to take this. I don't know what's in it. Like, it's only been studied for a few months. And I'm just like,
I mean, I'm a little concerned because it only took 16 months to develop it, or not even, but I'm gonna take it.
like, don't get me wrong, I'm concerned about it too, but you also have to think about by the time people like us get it, like get the vaccine, like it's going to be studied even more because we know that the first people who are going to get it are going to be frontline workers who are working in the medical field and the populations who are most vulnerable probably.
Yeah, I mean, so I figure like, and like, we may not even be the first state to get it. Like, yeah, and I'm not that worried about not getting it
Oh yeah, same.
or not having side effects. Um,
Well, I've also just understood that with most
and they
vaccines,
said that some of the problems with the are with 14 with teenagers. They said some of the problems with the vaccine are with young people. That's they didn't have enough information.
I saw that I saw on the news one night from a pretty reputable news source that there were people in the UK having some allergic reactions to the vaccine, but those were people who were in the past very prone to allergic reactions to a lot of things because some people's bodies just react that way, you know? Like I don't think that's necessarily something that they could have fully understood.
Like what kind of allergic reactions?
Just I believe it was like anaphylactic reactions, like where they like were like breaking out and like having like rashes and like severe like reactions where they needed to go and get hospitalized for the reaction. So,
Uh,
but it was like only like maybe 2 or 3 people when I saw this report that it happened to out of a lot of people who were receiving the vaccine. So,
um,
um, well, I think, and I've been also having conversations with people too about like obviously the reason why like these vaccines have been expedited is because I mean, if we look at the unemployment rates, the business closure rates, like obviously this has severely affected our economy. It's severely affected people's livelihoods and their well-being. Like obviously quick measures needed to be taken. Let's see. I'm trying to read what the discussion is in the chat box. Oh, Igni, we're glad that you're here because you're the only one commenting in the chat box today. Let's see. Igni says it only took a year as opposed to a decade or two. They were able to study and develop it so fast because we need it. Yeah. Right. Well, and the thing is, the vaccine comes in 2 doses. I think depending on what which vaccine it is, comes in 2 doses. So usually after the first dose, people will know how they're going to react to it. At least that's my understanding of it.
yeah, they said they make people wait like 15 minutes after
Yeah.
the first dose, and then they can tell whether or not they have a allergic reaction or not.
Right. So yeah, that's been obviously a very significant aspect of our show is like doing like regular updates and having conversation about the pandemic and how it's affected not only us but also the people around us and the people around the world. So all right, so the next pretty significant staple in our show is the election episode of having conversations about the election.
Oh boy.
We did a few discussions about that, I think. We had like obviously we had one election reflection episode, but we touched on it in several episodes in small segments because obviously that was a very significant event. Um
Yeah, I think that we did one whole episode about the election and like we talked about like how the results didn't come out yet and that it was going to take a while for the results and that everybody just needed to calm down and like slow the roll and it was going to take a while and then the next day the results are called.
I know, right? Like, it was pretty ironic. Like, it was the day before, literally the day before. And Igni, don't feel bad that you're the only one joining in the conversation. It's just possible that they're like our usual viewers might be busy tonight. They can come back and rewatch it and comment at that point. But I know that I think the election was exhausting for a lot of people, especially people on the left, because obviously we went into it after having experienced the last 4 years, and plus both of us being a part of the LGBTQ plus community, like have a very unique understanding of this exhaustion as we've been literally fearing for a lot of different aspects of our well-being, if that makes sense. So
Yeah, I was like going into that episode going, are we going to have another 4 years of Trump? And I was like, well, it looks good for Biden, but like
we didn't want to lull ourselves into a false sense of security because that's what happened in
right.
2016.
It was a little up in the air about whether or not Biden was going to win. And it was like it could be that Biden wins, but like maybe Trump will like come out of nowhere and win.
Right. Like, honestly, like, and I know we haven't done really a video about this, but I've been extremely unsettled about all of these court cases that the right has been trying to establish to overturn the election results.
Yeah, what's up
And
with the Senate? Like, not what's up with that?
I don't know. Well, I just saw like there was a news report that the Supreme Court turned away the president's team who were trying to perpetuate false allegations of voter fraud. Like they refused to even listen to the case, which is a
Damn
pretty
right they shouldn't
significant
listen to it. It's stupid.
right. And like to me, it's just a huge waste of money, and it's a subversion of the democratic process. Because if we look back at 2016, like if the left were trying to perpetuate any allegations like this, they would be ripped up one side and down the other. But the right now just seems to be justifying it completely, and I think that's extremely concerning.
It's just the right trying to gaslight the whole country into like this is how it is. We won the election
Well,
and
basically, the gaslighting goes as far as suggesting that democracy is only important so long as the person that we want gets it or controls it. That, to me, is a very scary direction.
yeah.
And I really don't think we're done having a conversation about that. I think that's going to be revisited for sure. Um,
Well, what's going to happen on inauguration? That's like I'm looking forward to that episode because like what's going to happen on inauguration day? Like when Biden goes to like the White House, is Trump going to greet him and go, "Here you go. Here are the keys to
right.
the White House."
Is he going
Or
to
is
follow
he
any
going
of
to be like,
the
"Screw you.
right? It's just like
Melania, lock the door."
it's so it's very surreal thinking we're at this point. And what's more surreal is that there are people who are okay with it. That like the people who are most apt to call out socialism are those who are basically getting into bed with fascism and justifying it. Like it
It's like I'm just like
Igny's like, Biden's just going to take the keys and be like, bye, Felicia.
Trump's gonna take the keys and whip them. Be like, go get them.
Kamala Harris is going to go in there and be like, listen,
listen, Lindsay, listen.
We're going to redecorate this place. We're going to take out the trash.
We're going to replant Jackie Kennedy's trees.
Oh my God. I forgot about that. Oh my gosh. But yeah, suffice it to say, that's also going to be a topic that we will most certainly be revisiting during our next season. I've been calling them seasons because that's what TV shows do. So why not us? The next season of our show. So let's, we have like maybe 15, 20 minutes left. Let's talk about our favorite episodes. Ari, what was your favorite episode that we did? Or favorite?
That's a good question. We had so many.
I have the list open so I can look at it and see.
I'm looking at the list right now. I really liked the putting the plus in LGBTQ plus. Those couple episodes we did were phenomenal. I think that I also liked our body image episode. That was a really vulnerable episode.
Yes, agree. Oh my gosh, yes, for sure. I would say my favorites are for sure the putting the plus in LGBTQ plus. That conversation was so good that we literally had to break it into 2 episodes.
The McRib is already back.
We should do an episode on that. I'm kidding. I did enjoy that 2-parter episode. I would actually enjoy if we did more of those 2-parter episodes. Of course, it really depends on the trajectory of the conversation and how much we have to talk about. But I really enjoyed the creative outlets and motivation episode because I always enjoy whenever we have opportunities to have chats about our creative outlets. Igny enjoyed our poetry episode. We will do more of those.
I loved our poetry episode. Oh, an update. Can
Yes.
I tell them?
Yes.
Can I tell them?
Do it.
So tonight, after this episode, I'm going to hit send on my poetry manuscript to the publisher. So I am going to be submitting it to the publisher tonight, and we're going to see how it goes.
And I've read it. It's phenomenal.
I'm very nervous. I'm very nervous, but I'm very excited because this is the first time I've ever submitted a poetry manuscript to a publisher. So I don't know how it's going to be taken, but I'm very excited.
I'm proud of you because that's such a big step for us as writers, especially because I know you can really relate to the fact that we've gone through long phases where we didn't feel confident in our work. We went through phases where we didn't want to really put it out there.
It's a lifestyle.
That broke me.
I have watched good horror movies, Kevin. Do you want to hear about some horror movies I watched this year?
Yes.
Let me tell you about the horror movies I watched this year. I watched The Rental. The Rental was a good horror movie I watched this year. I watched The Amulet this year. That was a good horror movie I watched this year. I also watched Host. I watched that on Shudder. That was the Shudder original movie I watched. So those are my top 3 horror movies that I watched this year.
And Kevin, I don't know if you were able to tune in, but a few weeks ago, we did, I think it was November 13th, we did a horror movie themed episode where we talked about our favorite horror movies. So if you have a particular interest in that and you didn't get a chance to see that, go back and check it out because you might find it interesting. Why do we need horror movies when 2020 has been a horror movie in of itself? But like I also really enjoyed our horror movie episode. Let's see.
That was a pretty good episode. We talked about a lot of horror movies in that episode. So
Our
many horror
Godzilla movie episode. Oh my God. Oh, one that I really did enjoy was the mental health stigmas episode. I think that like kind of like the body image one, like I really think that that involved us being very vulnerable about our experiences. So I really think that like obviously I think that some of the conversations had a lot more educational impact, and I think that was definitely one of them that did for sure. Um Yeah, like next semester. My gosh, can you tell that I'm in school mode? Next year, we have some really cool episodes in mind, and we're going to be doing some diverse ones. Our goal is to like maintain a theme, but also branch out and have like really unique conversations. So I'm really
and
excited for what we're going to be doing.
and hopefully we'll try and get some guests on next year.
Yes, that is one of our big goals is to have guests. We were actually going to have guests for our poetry episode, but that ended up kind of falling through. But we would love to have guests to kind of help add to our conversations. And of course, we have value the conversation that all of you add while watching it in the chat box too. So if you know anybody who would like this series, who maybe might be a fan of podcasts, so on and so forth, share with them the fact that we do this, and maybe we can get some more viewers as well. So I've also been recommending for everyone because, like Ari and I mentioned earlier in the show, that we're going to be on our Christmas break until we come back on January 8th. If you have free time during that half a month or so, and you want to go back and watch our show from the beginning, starting at episode 1, you're more than welcome to do that. Okay. Oh, Igni wouldn't mind volunteering to be a guest one day.
We could talk about kaiju.
I'm sure Igni and I could both talk your ear off about that, trust me. Or about fan fiction.
Ooh, that'd be a fun episode.
Yeah. Like that would be kind of fun, like doing a fan fiction episode talking about like how like writing within universes that we love has shaped us in a certain way. I know that's really done a lot for me too.
Mhm.
Um but yeah, like we definitely want to do some uh getting some people involved. Also, one thing to look forward to for next year, I'm like sitting with my leg up, is like I'm going to be changing how like the title card looks and everything. So I'm going to be bugging Ari for another photo because I think it's good every year for us to change our presentation, if that makes sense.
Oh, I'm gonna have to take another photo.
Oh, oh, I cracked my neck doing that. Being so gay that I cracked my neck. Anyway, but Ari, what are you looking forward to the most when it comes to what we're doing here?
um,
How do you feel about all of it?
I am looking forward to uh gosh, I love getting together and I just love I just love just talking with you. I just love that we have something interesting to do every week, and I just love more of the same, and growing, and yeah, just doing more of the same. Maybe we could use the scrolling banner more.
Oh yeah, or like even like the little like displays. Like there's a lot of like really cool features in StreamYard that we could use that I just haven't. We could do screen shares too. I think I did that for
Ooh.
one episode, but I can't remember off the top of my head. But yeah, I feel that way as well. Like I really think well, like first and foremost for me, especially when we started the show, it was very nostalgic for me because a long time ago when you first got me involved on YouTube, like we would do videos together and like we bathed in like I really do think that we have a very good creative chemistry about us.
Someday we'll
And
show the video.
right, oh God. One of these days, like we will also get together in person and do some videos too. I know that's one thing that we've been talking about. So at some point we will do that.
I'll write a
Um,
script for us, okay?
please do. Like it'll be phenomenal.
Actually, I wrote a horror movie script called The Abyss already. It's all ready to go. I just need to get a camera and I need someone to play the lead female.
Oh.
But yes, I
FYI, everyone.
yeah.
Well, and see, the thing is, that's another thing that I really value is that you have a lot of creative outlets, and that motivates me to maintain my level of creativity too. And I think that's very important, you know?
Yeah, it's one of my things is that eventually I want to be a film director, and just write my own scripts and just do my own thing and just yeah,
You
just
know,
try it out.
that would be a really cool episode to do too, like maybe talk a little bit about what it's like writing scripts because a lot of people don't have experience. I know I don't have a lot of experience writing scripts.
It's not hard. It's just time consuming because I take it from short stories that I write and I write it into script mode.
Mhm.
Um, it's just technical. You just have to have like an idea of how you I don't know like how it's technically supposed to done like how they do it in like Hollywood or anything. I just know how I write it and how I want it to be how I see a shot done so then I like write it out in a certain way. So like I don't know how like other people do it. I just know how I do it.
Right. Well, the thing is, like that's the beauty of it though. Like a lot of different writing styles, like the writer does create their own formats for things, you know. I think that could be why we enjoy poetry as much as we do too, because there is a certain level of freedom in how we get to present the images, the information, the moments, the scenes, right? So like maybe we could do like I really think it would be really cool to do more episodes talking a lot about our creative outlets, providing details about what the experiences have been like for us because like I know there are a lot of people out there who are aspiring creators and they look toward others for examples and knowledge about like what it's like to go through those experiences. So yeah. PS, if anybody also like cuz I know like I've had a few people email me with some episode ideas. If you ever have episode ideas, don't hesitate to reach out to us because we've been known to like that horror movie episode. That was a recommendation from somebody watching one of our shows. And we went with it. We were like, hell yeah, we're gonna do a horror movie themed episode. Why not?
That was the guy who always commented on the end of our episodes, wasn't it?
Oh, what's his name? Toyoskio, I think that's
Toyoskio, yeah.
Toyoskio, where have you been? We're used to you leaving an LOL at the end of our show, and we are always amused by it. It's like the period at the end of our sentence. It's a trademark at this point.
It was great. We would look forward to that.
That's another thing I really love about what we've done over the past few months because we've created like things that we've been amused about, like things that have been like redundancies, things, like I think that's been fun. Not to mention I feel like we've cultivated a really strong and loyal following too, which is nice.
Yeah, it's been great talking to everybody. We've had uh, David and Igni and Arpy and
Taylor and
Taylor and
um I feel like I've seen Kevin before, possibly. But we've had some really good people tune in, and it's so appreciated. And we know that sometimes people tune in based on what the topic is too, and that's totally okay. We don't expect you to be here for every single episode, though we would love it. So now that we are toward the end of our episode, obviously, again, I'll remind everyone that we will be back doing this January 8th. Let me double check. I'm fairly sure that is the date. I'm always double checking dates.
Oh, it's 2 days after my birthday.
Oh, yeah, like Ari and I's, like our birthday is pretty close to one another.
When is your birthday?
Mine's December 30th.
Oh my God, Capricorn.
Capricorn
Capricorn.
forever. That's probably another reason why we get along so well. We could do an astrology episode. Who knows? Um, I'm already coming up with ideas. But yeah, we'll be back on January 8th. Again, make sure that you subscribe to my channel and to Ari's channel, which is named Strange Nothings. We will be probably doing other videos between now and that time. So tune in for those individual videos. And last but not least, we hope that you enjoy the holiday season. We hope that you are safe, and we just wish you well. Any parting words from you, Ari?
Um, have a very happy holiday, happy Hanukkah, happy New Year. Yeah, happy Kwanzaa, Merry Yule. Uh, just have a happy holiday. If you don't celebrate any of those, um, take care of yourself. Don't get too depressed. I know this time of year is really hard on people.
Yeah,
Take care of yourselves and one another. Um, you know, if you need someone, happy Festivus. That's a good one. Festivus for the rest of us.
I love it.
uh, Happy New Year. Yeah, just enjoy. Uh, the new year is coming around, and hopefully it brings better tidings.
Definitely. All right, everyone. We love you dearly, and we will see you in January. Talk to you soon. Bye.
Bye.
Hearts.
Heart.